Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again here with it's been a while. I think this is part five or six of my reaction to the Tim Kennedy addressing all the claims. So let's jump back in.
At least hold your feet to the fire, and I hope I've done that because I think at the end of the day, I was really mad at the people criticizing you. I was really mad at the videos they were making, but I think you deserved it, and I think they were right, and that's okay.
Yep.
You're still my friend in every way, but I just want to say that the criticism was well earned. You lost everything. You should.
Man, now that's a real friend, in my opinion, who can look at his mate here in this case. So I don't know anything about Brian. I, don't particularly care. But here's somebody in Brian who sees his mate Tim Kennedy, who's made these outlandish claims, published a book and stuff, again with, I assume, because I haven't read it, some of these same claims, or if not these same claims, or maybe embellished them even more, maybe exaggerated, or maybe inaccuracies. The list goes on in terms of what he's spoken about. He has acknowledged and said big fish stories and lies, essentially. But for this guy to still acknowledge him and say that that's okay, and he's still his friend, like, it says a lot, regardless of whether people like Brian or not. Says a lot to his, I want to say his character, and I don't mean that from the context of, well, hopefully he's okay with just telling a whole bunch of lies about things, and then just thinking that that's okay, because it's not. Doesn't seem like he is. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like he is. Again, I don't know anything about this guy, Brian. But yeah, it's like Tim's very lucky, very fortunate, I think, to have a friend and or friends like this guy. That's what I reckon anyway.
Should have. That's the way this dance and this game goes.
I don't know if he lost everything. Like, what did he lose? So that would be good. There you go. There's another piece of content for you, Tim Kennedy and Brian, if he's want to talk through what did he lose as a result of, I guess, these claims.
And I think you're going to be better for it.
I hope so. I like learning a lesson is never a fun thing, but pain.
I hope so too. I mean, just at the end of the day, whatever stories you're telling, just keep them in line with what they are. If it's private security contracting, that's private contracting. That's not a military deployment. You don't need to try to make every trip away. This is just my take. You don't need to try to make every trip away seem like it was done special or secret operations, special operations job, when you weren't. Like, it's a private security gig, either NGO or, close protection, whatever it is, or working on a contract with a USAID or AusAid or whoever the work is with. And that's what it is. It's not a military deployment, so it shouldn't be termed or referenced as one. Anyway, seems simple enough, eh? Like, surely, you would think people with enough aptitude to get into something like Green Berets, Special Forces, and there in America would have enough understanding to know the difference.
It has a real purpose, and I think growth happens after mistakes, and growth happens after you put your foot in your mouth. Growth happens after you fail. I loved back in.
Those things are true. I agree with that 100%. Growth happens after you fail, after you make mistakes, put your foot in your mouth. I agree with those personally, because I've done those.
Bouncing back from losses in fights, because, whoever the next 2-3.
Yep, done that too.
Opponents were going to be, I had every intention of learning from what I did wrong in that last fight. Same as it has been in my military career. I have made plenty of mistakes. All that criticism sparked an investigation, which the military rightfully concluded. And, still super proud to serve and to wear a Green Beret and be part of Special Operations Unit.
I wonder there you go, another piece of content for you, Tim. I wonder what did that investigation involve or entail? did you get dragged in? Was he dragged in for interrogation, or just out of curiosity? Don't need to go through what the findings were if they don't want to, but I'd be interested to know, even if it was just a little side topic, an honest one. I don't want to hear, they come storming my house in the middle of the night. They threw blink and they blew the door in, or the wall in, or the window in. They come in guns blazing or whatever, and threatened life. I don't want to hear any of that sort of stuff. I'd like to know. I'd be curious to know. Maybe he's not allowed to talk about it. Maybe he had to sign an NDA or something as well. Who knows? But I wonder what that investigation entailed. I can't imagine it being much more than just having a sit-down talk and going, okay, mate, here's your military record. You're a Green Beret. You deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan with the military. 2 deployments. Or maybe he had multiple deployments to both of those countries within a period of time, over several years or whatever. But it doesn't sound like he was doing hundreds of, or dozens or hundreds of deployments everywhere within the military anyway.
And that's over in the past. Now it's like, how can I continue to be a contributing member of the team? How can I continue to go overseas and help people and fight for this country and find people that can't really fight for themselves or need some help, and be that person or part of that group that's there to help them. And I think karma is real.
Just looking at the time, so there's about 12 minutes left. Hopefully I haven't heard him talking about the unliving and for hours being in contacts or whatever it was, or maybe he has. Maybe I've missed that because it's been quite a while since I come back to this reaction.
When you make a mistake, you're going to get it. And when you do good and you pour good, you also receive that. So I'm trying to do a lot more of that. And I'm going to be very precise.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll get to read this next manuscript.
You're allowed to exaggerate, and it's fun when you exaggerate. Like that's the best coffee I've ever had in my life. That's you. Like, it's the greatest. They're the best tacos on the planet.
Or just if you're going to exaggerate, if you want to make a movie, if you want to make your story into a movie, I guess, or something that you think people will. I guess these days people look at movies and go, "Oh, that's BS, that's rubbish, that's blah blah blah." But people probably still watch it anyway, depending on who the actors are. But if you're going to write something or create something that you want to embellish or put inaccuracies in, or big fish stories, or whatever, just just do a fiction book. Like, don't do non-fiction. Just write a fictional book, fictional character, or call the fictional character still by your name if you want to, and did all these amazing fictional things. But don't write I guess what some might call your memoirs or biography or autobiography, or a non-fiction book about your life or service if even one part of it is not true. That's my take.
Yeah. It's your favorite thing. And I think that enthusiasm is part of who you are. It's great. It's just that we can't be doing that in a book about combat or about and you didn't need to do it. You didn't need to do it, but you did. And all that matters is
truth moving forward.
That's it, bro.
Yeah.
That's it, brother. It's like, when chaos hits and it hits you and you lost it all, you align yourself with the highest truth possible.
Still wondering what he means by lost it all. What did he lose? What's all?
In my opinion, that's God. I always as I get older, I get far more religious. I get way more Christian. And I never thought I'd say that, but I think that the answers lie in just understanding that there's something much bigger than we are, and something way beyond this status that we all fight for, this attention, this money, this certainty that we all want, this comfort that we all want. I don't think that's where we grow.
No.
Then we grow in the fire, man.
And the adage of, God, family, friends, country could not be more accurate in my life.
Yeah.
And I think where that focus has been, where like me is not in those 3 things, making sure that I'm being a good Christian, that I'm taking care of my family, my friends, and that I'm doing the right for my country. Like, I love those things. and I'm going to continue.
And I guess if those are your things, if that's your priority in terms of what it is that you're looking to do, I assume those were probably his priorities beforehand, before writing the book, before being called out about the claims of inaccurate lies, basically, or just flat out lies. I'm assuming those were his priorities in the first place. And I guess for anybody, I'm not religious, but I guess for anybody who has that mentality and has a faith first, whatever that is, then their family and their friends come next, and then their patriotism to their country. I guess those four things for anybody, regardless of what people believe, you can take religion out of that equation for me and be family, friends, and the country or countries that I've been lucky enough to live and serve in, like NZ and Australia. Those are probably good guide rails for anybody, I think, to try to live their life in a good way, in a positive way, and be a positive contributing member to society and to the community.
To fight for those things. And I'm going to obviously be much more diligent and intentional and disciplined in words.
I'll be there to hold you to it.
I'm going to say some stupid stuff though, and I'll probably get it again, but I think they're going to be few and far between now.
Is that maybe it isn't, maybe it's genuine, or maybe it's just a setup for as and when he does knowingly tell lies again, to then be able to have this video as a reference and go, well, I did say I was going to say some stupid stuff. I think there's a difference between saying stupid stuff, which I say a lot of stupid stuff, and just telling flat out lies about one's military service or a job that somebody's been on or something that somebody has done. So anyway.
And hopefully not to the degree of retardedness that I get to.
Well, the lesson is that, we are flawed, and we're born sinners and we die sinners, and we're born imperfect and we die imperfect. And, what you keep trying to get better. And that's what we're doing here. Yeah. Is just, facing the truth, taking your lumps like a man. Yeah. And moving on, even if it leaves you kind of empty-handed.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you doing it. I appreciate you, at least, because we haven't really talked about this. No. And it was awkward. We kind of danced around the subject.
That's true. I guess that must be, or must have been until now, it seems, pretty awkward if you're one of the mates and you want to be a good friend like this guy Brian does want to be and is towards his mate Tim, and you're hearing and seeing these things that are being said about your mate, are you starting to wonder, how does this guy Brian bring it up with his friend? I guess with the military, from a military context, guys that are your mates, and or at least that you had a relationship with, that you were friends with, if you hear something about them from other guys, one, you're going to probably hit up those guys and find out, what are you talking about? Where did you hear that? When did this happen? And then you're going to go to your mate and go, bro, what's the story? Like, I just heard this. Oh, so-and-so over here in this place was talking about this. I hit him up and said, where did you hear that from? He said, this is where it happened. This is who we heard it from. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And I may be oversimplifying it, but I don't think so, because that's what I saw happen during my time in the military. And I'm not talking just SF, I'm talking just military in general, in the battalion, from your between sections, between platoons. Like, guys would just come and hit you up and or talk with you about it, and or go out of their way to come and see you. Sometimes in between the different rifle companies, guys will go over and come and speak to you. I remember on the trip in Fiji, not proud of it, but there was we were out on the town in Fiji, and one of the junior soldiers was gobbing off in the bathrooms about, I think he was trying to take the piss out of one of the other soldiers, who was one of my mates. Now, my mate wasn't there at the time, and this young fella, fairly new, he must have been part of the more recent corps trainees that had just marched out, was in there. I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but I took exception to it. and I'm not proud of it, but I smacked them up in the bathrooms. Didn't get carried away. This was before what happened up in Auckland. I was still in the battalion, still relatively junior, but not as junior as a fresh corps trainee coming out. So I would have been in there. I would have been in battalion for a little over a year by that stage. So still junior, but when you've got reasonably fresh corps trainees coming through, so I'm not an old dig, but I'm not a fresh pup either. Or a LID, the Australian infantry might talk about, or Australian Defence Force. So when I took exception to that, smacked them around, I left it at that. I thought that was it. Okay, walked off, left him. There were some of the other guys there from his company, because remember that trip in Fiji, I was asked to go over with Alpha Company as a medic, not as a rifleman. And so, but I knew a lot of the guys there in Alpha Company, and good guys, awesome company, good fellas. And then the next day, one of the actual senior fellas, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to say Vince is his first name. I can't, but surname was Ferris, Vince Ferris. And he is thinking hearty, right? Like had a staunch reputation, well put together. Some might say intimidating fella, but I don't think that's what he was trying to do or be. Anyway, he must have been in battalion several years. I want to say he was a corporal too. So Corporal Ferris, Vince Ferris, shout out, respect to you. He came and saw me because they were in another barrack block line, come over see me, and just walked in, hands down, and basically hit me up. He goes, "Bro, what's the story with what happened with so and so?" Just real straight, blunt, no emotion, no loud, angry voice, high pitched, nothing like that. Just very calm, very staunch, very, very Vince. And walked in. Said, "Bro, what's the story with the young fella? What happened there? Basically, why did I smack him up?" And I told him. Can't remember again the exact words, but it was something along the lines of he was talking rubbish, SHIT, about so and so, and I took exception and gave him a hiding, or smacked him up a bit. I wouldn't say gave him a hiding. And then Vince just goes, "Okay, all right," and walked off. And I assume that's because Vince would have known the fella that I was talking about, for one, who was a senior soldier, and that fella was senior to me. Here, and I. It's not because I felt like I needed to defend my mate's honor. Here's a senior soldier to me. I did have a lot of respect for that person that was being badmouthed. This is my take of it anyway. And I reacted the way that I did. Is that what I'm recommending? No. But that's what I did. And so in terms of why do I share that example, it's just in and around speaking too. Like, that's just one example. There's been several other examples whereby I've spoken to other people for having done things maybe not quite as bad, sometimes a little bit worse, and having those conversations. But what I'm getting at is those sorts of conversations, my experience, just tend to happen. That was one where it was directed at me, and I needed to report, basically, and give an account of why I took the actions that I took. And potentially, like an egg, I could have ended up in a scrap with Vince. I probably would have got a hiding, maybe, at that time. Like, I didn't know much about Vince's reputation, but he was a staunch, like I said, well put together senior soldier, like growing AWS man. And I was still a little 20-year-old pimple face fella. So, yeah. Anyway, let's jump back into this. I shared that just because on the back end of what these guys are talking about, Brian saying that he'll be there to hold him to account, Tim saying that hopefully he'll have less of these sort of situations, and me just, I guess, connecting the dots. In the military setting, it is pretty easy to just, I think, to call people out. Civilian military or civilian, maybe it's different, maybe it's harder, I don't know.
I just kept going back to knowing that you had been overseas a lot in dangerous situations. I knew that. I knew a lot of other stuff, but I couldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
But
hopefully I'll get to.
Sorry to stop it again, but not talking about it. Yeah, the other stuff is, it doesn't sound like it was with the military, but a lot of the wording that Tim has used is made it sound like he was on all these multiple deployments with the military when he just wasn't.
And I think this podcast will be an opportunity to take people to places that that I get to go, and they'll get to see what's happening in those areas. Like, don't try to read beyond or make assumptions or extrapolate from inference what you think is going on there. Like, it's going to be from the horse's mouth. If I get to go and talk to some, a rebel that has defected, and I get to sit down with him and be like, hey, what's happening? And he's like, oh, like this was a compulsory thing. I had no choice. And like, they were going to kill my family, and that's why I'm fighting for this. Like, I hope people will have the opportunity to get a peek behind the curtain. And
you're in a really unique position to be in places where journalists don't get to go for the most part.
Yeah, I've actually been trying to bring journalists to some of these places, and it's been hard. Where like I can't get in there. Once I'm there, I'm too scared to kind of get to the front lines. Once we get to the front lines, I'm again scared that when I talk to these people, I'm then going to be like a face of a thing that's going to have extra attention. But I think it's worth it for Americans to understand what's happening throughout the world right now and how many different. I'm
confused. You see, was he talking about he's afraid or he's scared, or is he speaking on behalf of the media people that he's tried to get in, and them saying that they're scared and they don't want to be the face of a thing? He lost me, but I'm not going to rewind.
Important conflicts are occurring that are important for American policy, and where our adversaries want to see us fail there. They want to see instability. They want to see, like in that instability, with security and stability comes opportunity for both democracy and capitalism. So the best thing for them is to create an unstable and unsecure area for, like values and ideals that are not American to flourish. With poverty, it's easier to recruit. It's easier to manipulate. But then when people are doing good and a country's doing good, democracy's happening, man, you look at China and Russia, they're like, I don't like it when that happens. But I want Americans to see what's really going on and how dire it is in some places and how important these places are. So like that's one of the many reasons that, I for the past, 1 or 2 years have just been working. And while I was there, I'm like, people have to know what's going on here. So
I think you're in a really unique position to do stuff like that, because I didn't know, I follow things fairly closely, and I didn't know a lot of this stuff until I started kind of getting a little peek from.
I mean, Ukraine's off people's minds. Obviously we're talking about Iran, we're talking about the Strait. Like what's going to be happening with the Suez. Then we look in South America and you see USAID lose a ton of funding, and all of a sudden, like country after country after country is having conservative heads of state elected. And that's not a coincidence. Like what was propping up the opposing forces there, what was propping up the opposing political parties there, and kind of the manipulation of the elections have been happening for a decade. Well, way longer than that, but black and white.
I was just going to say, I think a lot longer than a decade, Tim.
In the past 10 to 15 years, with the exception of Argentina and Malay.
And that's me not even having voted in the last decade, in the last 2 decades.
You pretty much see every South American country that has been what you think to be leaning left. And then.
Sorry, what I meant by me not having voted in the last 2 decades is even I know the manipulation and stuff in the governments, in those circles, which is part of the reason why I haven't voted. I should have explained myself.
And a bunch of money disappears that's been used for those elections, and those political parties no longer accessible. And you're like, wait a second. That was a conservative, pro-democracy, pro-capitalism person that was just elected. How is that possible? Another one. And it just keeps happening. Then you take elections out of it from the political side and you go into some of these conflict areas.
This, I think, I'll let this play out, but it seems like this conversation's just shifted dramatically, and that we're not hearing any more about Tim addressing, what is it, every single claim? Tim Kennedy addresses every single claim. I don't know if he's addressed every single claim. I'm not and haven't gone down a rabbit hole of Tim Kennedy to look at interviews that he's done with Jocko Willink, to look at interviews that he's done with Sean Ryan, to look at interviews that he's done with, I assume, Joe Rogan, with other people, probably other likely big podcasters and entertainment personalities. What I can remember in bits and pieces that I've heard and seen in short little 30-second clips, he's spoken about a whole bunch of other stuff which I haven't heard come up in here. So I don't know. What I'm saying is I don't know that he's addressed every single claim. But we'll let this video finish off and play out.
You're like, wait, why is this place important? Well, it's close enough where if one of our peer level adversaries gets a foothold there and they're able to put military equipment there, we're going to have real problems. And you look to a different place, like why is this place important? Well, there's $40 trillion of precious minerals that are being illegally exported, and all of those minerals are going to our adversaries and then refunding the war and eroding the democracies that's there. Like, but nobody knows about that either. So like, this is what I would do. I'm going to grab some cameras. I'm going to go down there, and we're going to talk to ministers, heads of state, and the people that are physically on the ground.
It's like
I think talking to ministers and heads of state, I don't know that that's going to give him more credibility or less. talking with those sorts of people. I mean, I'm sure there are ministers and members of parliament and heads of state and just council members, local council members, whatever. I'm sure there are good people who are genuine, who are trying to do the right thing. But when it seems to be that the vast majority appear to be corrupt, and you've got somebody who may be good who's part of that, but the vast majority seems to be rotten, it's hard to, you're always going to struggle to convince people that what is happening and what these people are doing are for the greater good, and or indeed if what they're saying is the truth. That's just my take.
what Vice used to do.
Yeah. Before they got corrupt.
Yeah.
Before they got captured.
Yeah.
And, I think right before we rolled cameras, we were talking about the nicotine. Like I don't want chains, leashes, or shackles to anything or anyone. I just want people to know ground truth of what's happening there.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome.
Ground truth is the main thing here.
The truth being the operative word there.
Yeah.
A nice reminder from his mate
Let me
Brian.
read all your stuff so I can be like, hey, listen up. Let's keep this as honest as possible. Yeah. I appreciate you letting me be the first person to be on this and to kind of. I hope I handled.
I think what would have been nice, and I can understand Tim wanting to have his mate who, to me, sounds like a civilian, doesn't have an understanding of military things, which is what he's shared. Yeah, which is what he shared right at the start. I think in my first reaction, this guy Brian. But I think it would be good, and dare I say, would have been better for Tim from a genuine perspective of wanting to come clean and actually address all the claims, if he actually had a military person. Whether the military person was his friend or not doesn't particularly matter to me, but somebody who has an understanding, and preferably from the same part of the military where he served, and and or dare I say in a higher level unit, so in a tier 1 unit. So either at the same unit level that he served in, whether the person is a friend of his or not, and or at a higher level unit than where Tim served in. Just it would, like I said, military people can have more of a direct and blunt conversation about things and call each other out, and just be more to the point in those conversations. When it's a civilian military, even the military person, and I know this from experience as well, you sort of tend to have to try to dilute a lot of the stuff that you might normally say, or not be as not be as direct, harsh, some people might say, passive aggressive. Some I've had that thrown in my face before as well by some civilians, male and female. Why do you have to be so passive aggressive? I was like, why are you being passive aggressive? Those things say to me, I was like, I'm not being passive aggressive. I'm just asking you a bloody direct question, mate. Why did you do that? There's no passive aggressive about it. It's just blink and give me an answer, because it seems like you're just being an idiot. Those might be the undertones in the way that I've asked it, but it's still just a direct question. So you have an opportunity to respond and not try to flip it or get out of responding. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. It does in my head.
The subject matter with respect to all the men and women in uniform and people that lay their lives down, and not just their lives down, but just go into theater and sacrifice a lot to be away from their family.
Best military in the world.
Yeah, man, and I am, for better, whatever it is. You know, maybe it's my dad was a Marine, but I'm a patriot, and I have enormous respect for the uniform and for stuff.
82 years running, we are the superpower military on the planet. And there's not a single place that we can't get to.
Yeah, but I hope that
no denying that
people also understand that one of the things that keeps us strong is that we have an ideal to fight for. That's very important. This is supposed to be, the United States is supposed to be the city on the hill, and that is a place where we've always given safe quarter to our gentler spirits, people that are different, and just where everybody can breathe free and be their best version of themselves. They don't have to settle for who they have to be, but who they could be. Yeah. And that's called human potential. So that's what we're fighting for. That's kind of what the United States stands for in my book. But more importantly, I think that I hope that I know that you will move on from here, and I appreciate you kind of coming on and just at least admitting to your big mistakes here. And
we're gonna get you back on here more.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. You know, I'm here. I'm here.
Get to do workouts with me beforehand.
I'm your I'm your guy. And I look forward to spending. I always say I do jiu-jitsu with Tim and company, and I say, and this is what I look like the whole time. Like that.
That's not true. I'm like,
that's how that's what I look.
Just gonna skip through. I think this is pretty much just, dare I say, fluff now. So bear with me.
And I'm watching Gordon, and I'm like, I almost texted him. I was like, dude, I do a beating.
There's almost nothing I can do.
I can't fathom it.
Yeah.
Because I'm a real, and now I have to go get my teeth done.
Yep. You gotta take care of them little beautiful teeth of yours.
From rolling with a monster like
Not
yourself.
Me. No. My friend.
Yes.
Loved having you on here.
Thanks, buddy.
We're gonna be talking a whole bunch more.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll leave that there. Tim Kennedy's Overdogs, USA. Even this piece, the Overdogs USA, from what I understand, from bits and pieces that I've seen, I don't know how true it is, this Overdogs podcast, 292K subscribers, from what I understand, he purchased this or did some sort of deal with Mike Perry, the bare knuckle boxing champion, ex-UFC guy. So apparently this used to be his podcast. I don't know. Like, if anybody knows out there, you can correct me and let me know, or just put it in the comments. But that's what I've heard and seen bits and pieces of anyway. Just that seems strange. Again, there's a content piece right there. Where did Overdogs come from? Because I'd never heard of this podcast. Mind you, there'd be plenty of podcasts and things that I haven't heard of. Have probably got a large following, but the bits and pieces, where did I hear it from? I think I heard it from one of the guys that used to be the co-host of the Anti-Hero podcast. Now, I don't know if what he says is true either, but I think that's the guy that I saw it from. I think it was a little short clip somewhere talking about the Overdogs podcast. In summary, Tim Kennedy coming clean or addressing all the claims. To me, it doesn't seem like he's addressed all the claims. I could be wrong in saying that. I haven't seen all his interviews, or I haven't even sat down and watched. This will be the first interview in full that I've watched of Tim Kennedy, whereby though he's basically just having a conversation with his friend, and his friend has done as well a job as he can. And I don't know that Tim has addressed all the claims. Those that do know, those that have followed Tim, those that think, I have had comments saying Tim is a great guy, literally saved his life from one person. I've had other people call Tim Kennedy a charlatan, blah, blah, blah. But those same people have also acknowledged that he'd be a bad man to mess with, if you were getting into a hand-to-hand combat situation. So, and I think there's enough evidence of that in terms of Tim's ability, right, to deliver violence, let's say. But yeah, to me, it doesn't feel like, it feels like there's still more gaps in the claims, or that there's still more claims that haven't been answered. At the end of the day, maybe this is a start, and maybe you'll do more podcasts with this guy, Brian, and address other concerns or claims. I don't really know, but glad I've got through this particular reaction, and it is what it is. I mean, yeah, Tim Kennedy, former UFC fighter, podcast host, and ex-Green Beret. So take it for what it's worth, people. Draw your own conclusions from it. Go back, watch his interview again, not necessarily with my reaction. Those that are his friends, like this guy Brian, shout out to you. Respect to you guys for sticking by your mates and not just discarding them. And Tim, with any luck, bro, you will stay on the path and just keeping your retells or your experiences just factual and truthful going forward. So anyway, thanks very much for your time, everybody. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you on the next one.